Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I do apologize. I had some technical difficulty. Um, my Wi-Fi wasn't working, so I had to switch. So I'm apologizing in advance if I am moving slowly. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll open up in prayer. Attention prayer. Surely I turn myself to thee, O Allah, striving to be upright. To him who originated the heavens and the earth, and I am not among the polytheists. Surely my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah, Lord of the worlds. No associate has he. This I am commanded, and I am of those who submit. O Allah, thou art the King, and there is no God but thee. Thou art my Lord, and I am thine servant. And I have been greatly unjust in myself and confess my faults. So please grant me protection against all my faults. From none grants protection against faults but thee, and guide me to the best of morals, for none can guide to the best of morals but thee. And turn away from me the evil and indecent morals, for none can turn away from me the evil and indecent morals but thee. O Allah, bless Muhammad, and bless the true followers of Muhammad, as thou didst bless Abraham and the true followers of Abraham. For indeed in the worlds thou art praiseworthy and made magnified. And O Allah, make Muhammad successful, and make the true followers of Muhammad successful, as thou didst make Abraham successful, and the true followers of Abraham successful. For indeed in the worlds thou art praiseworthy and made magnified. We submit this prayer in the name of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and in the name of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. How are you all doing today?
Walaikum salam. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank Allah. I was a little sleepy earlier, but after my Wi-Fi stopped working, I started waking up because I have to, I live in the country. I just moved to the country. And so there's no Wi-Fi out here. And so we have done everything possibly humanly possible to get Wi-Fi. So if my Wi-Fi is running slowly, I apologize. So we had to wind up getting hotspots on our telephones, on our cell phones. And for some reason, it's not working today. So with that being said, I'm working off of my home Wi-Fi, which we have to have home Wi-Fi. We had a mobile hotspot and Wi-Fi hotspots on our cell phones, and we still are having problems getting the internet. But nonetheless, it is what it is. So I've got a couple of contacts from people this week. As Sister Gabrielle did try to forewarn everyone that it was going to be real, and that she said, start today. So what did you all think about this assignment this week? Because we're going to spend about an hour talking about this. So for those who could come off mute, come on off mute, and let's get down and get to it. Oh, let me begin by, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Okay, so it was a lot. I have 15 pages of notes on the assignment. This is thick paper, this stuff. But anyway, so it's a lot of information, lots of videos you all had to cover. I know you didn't cover all of them, but what is your overall thoughts on this week's assignment?
I'll go first. It was definitely juicy. Like you said, we were getting into some juicy details. You know, I've always been into conspiracies and different things. And some things I kind of knew, but I had no idea that the education conspiracy ran this deep. And then I really went down the rabbit hole when I started to do the research on the Synagogue of Satan and the Rothschild family and all that, which I had known a little bit. But then to see how everything is connected and just how how so long ago this all started. Like, you know, it was neat. It was very interesting though, but just, you know, just amazing to see the layers and just, you know, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, you can't fathom the depths of Satan, and you really can't. Like, it just is, it's unthinkable.
So what do you think about the just about the education system that we've all been exposed to? Now that you have gotten a little more in depth in what is this conspiracy, what are your thoughts?
For me, I have just been reevaluating my whole educational career, like my whole, all of my education, my life, just everything, because I wonder, especially that one video we watched with, is it Igerby? What's the lady's name?
Yeah.
Charlotte
Charlotte
Isgerby. When she showed the part with the children and the computers, and I just kept trying to trace all through my life different moments where I could, you know, be exposed to certain things. And, you know, for me, and then even the stuff dealing with the IQ testing in some of the other videos, because I was, you know, always in the gifted and talented program in the Los Angeles Unified School District. And so it had me questioning, what really was that program? Like, you know, was it to target certain students, certain types of minds? And then for me, I was kind of, you know, the quote unquote black sheep of the family, in that, you know, like I said, the first class, you know, I come from a family of educators. So, you know, just very well educated, you know, middle class black folks. So, you know, I was supposed to follow down this certain line and all these kind of things. And I just kind of went on, you know, the beaten path and, you know, started looking up things for myself. Part of it was just my own disobedience or whatever, but also some of it was just, I think, what Allah was calling me towards, like to look into other things. But I really started to just think about some of the things, how I was educated and that were instilled in me, and like just trying to figure out where I've seen it in my own life with certain things, like how I do things and definitely things that I value. And I don't know, I'm still trying to figure it out, because she really messed me up with the computer thing. And I think something about what I saw with that really makes me think something about YouTube videos for children these days, because I do think that something is going on with a lot of these YouTube videos and what it's doing to the children, beyond just turning them into rampant consumers. You know what I mean? Because if you really watch some of their videos, especially if I don't know if any of you on here have smaller children, but there's so many shows just of children playing with toys and different things, like unboxing videos and all that. And so at some point I realized this is like an hour-long commercial. Like, y'all are, you know, we thought we got away from commercials. No, we just watched a whole show of commercials. So something about that videos particularly made me think something about the YouTube videos of now, but I'm still trying to figure out my own education.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I know what you mean. Sister Kecia.
Yes, ma'am. It was a lot. I found John Taylor Gatto's. I found that fascinating. Like, I never thought I would want to watch. I saw that on your website. I'm like, 5 hours? That's long. But it was very, very interesting. And the one thing that had me thinking was when he said that, you know, when he's in the classroom, he tried to get his children to think, like, why are we doing this? And I'm like, I never thought about why I'm doing this. I'm just doing this because this is what you do. So it just goes to show that I was just herded in like the rest of them, you know, and just education, period. And, you know, it just, everything he said just had me thinking about the whole system and why it got started. And I would hear Minister Farrakhan say, you know, this education system. And I would just think, okay, because America's at the bottom and everybody else at the top, but it runs so deep. And the reasons for it, just like you, like Sister Loretta said, you can't fathom the depths of Satan. So, but I found the John Taylor Gatto, I found that extremely fascinating, you know, so I don't know. So,
yes, we'll get into some of the specifics about it. Yes, ma'am. So we have more to go. Sister Sylvia, I know you've been working on your assignment as well. So, what did, okay, there you are. What did you come away with what you've gotten so far? Is that you on the phone as well? Okay, you're having difficulty with your sound. What you may have to do is go to your settings, because I don't even see a mute button on there. Let me see if I can help you on this side. It doesn't have an unmute. And you went out and came back in? Try going out and come back in. And then if you do, what you do is just, okay, no, that's not you. Try going out and come back in, please. Okay. All right, Sister Valinda is with us, but she's not feeling well today. So if you want to comment, you surely can. If you just don't want to be on camera, that'll be fine. So you could jump in if you would like. So conspiracy. We talked about that last week, and we said that a conspiracy is an agreement between two or more parties, and all it has to be is two people or two parties to deprive a third party of legal rights, or deceive a third party to obtain illegal objectives. Okay, so what did the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan mention about the educational conspiracy in the video, The Dumbing Down of America? What did he mention? Do you all know about how you can use videos and get the transcript? Did I show you all that? Okay, well, I'm going to show you all that for future purposes. Let's see. I am going to pull up a video, and then I will show you all how to get the transcripts. That's you, Sister Sylvia?
Mike is still
Okay.
on my mic.
Okay, so what, well, you're gonna have to turn off your phone because you're gonna get a feedback loop. Okay. And you can unmute yourself if you're muted. Okay. So what was your takeaway from this week's assignment? So Sylvia,
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Great, good, thank you.
Can't see you, but I can hear you. But yes, ma'am, that's okay.
That's all right. I think I just hit it. Okay.
There you go. Okay. Waiting on you, Sister Sylvia.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear it. But what was the last thing?
What was your takeaway from some of the videos and or the research from this week?
It was quite a bit. Oh my goodness. I had forgot that John Gatto was 5 hours. And it was like the last video that I watched. It looked like it should have been the first one.
It should have.
Yeah, ma'am. But he gave a lot of information, and it's kind of like, if I'm not understanding, I guess why, I guess because didn't know about the educational system, but looks like, you know, as parents, we should have been questioning the education that our children were receiving, especially since we had so many children drop out children getting in trouble a lot. I guess we just should have questioned the education. And how come with the private schools, they don't have the curriculum that the public schools have? And as parents, I don't see how come we don't have the right to ask, to change the curriculum, or why we don't can have input on what our children are learning.
That's a good point.
And why it's just
We don't. You're right.
why the state has to, tell what our children learn in school instead of us as parents coming together and coming up with a curriculum or what we want our children to learn in school. Because there's so much
You're
going on
absolutely
in
right.
school. So in order to, to say it got to be something wrong with the education that they're receiving. At least some of them anyway, was like, I think it was him or was it Ken, was saying about, the ages of, the children of going
That was
to,
Ken.
yeah, the ages of the children and how the children were learning. Like I say, some children learn at a slower pace, some may, hands-on, but they don't really do the children like that. They just put them all
He
in
said
one
by
class.
date of manufacture.
Right, and that was very interesting. Then he said about the bell ringing, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, that is true. That's just like in a factory. You hear the sound when they say go to lunch. The bell rings when it's time to come back from lunch, and I guess it's just getting a program to make sure that they're on time when they start working." That kind of stuck out to me there. The main thing I think was at the end when he was talking about Death Valley, how when it rained, if all the flowers came back, so they considered it dead, but it just needed to be in the right environment, and that was deep. And just like our children, we consider them to be such and such, but they just need to be in the right environment to grow.
Yeah. That's it. Praise be to Allah. Awesome. That's about the input. I'm sorry if my sound is bad. About the input of the parents on the curriculum. That is so right on it, because literally we do not have the right. I'm not going to say we don't have the right. We don't have the power.
The power, right? We should have some power and some say on what our children are learning in the school system.
And that's why the whites in many states are now on this whole critical race theory. They're saying that, critical race theory, which is a misnomer, is being taught in school. So if anybody talks about anything that happened as a result of police brutality, as it relates to white cops, black, assailants, I guess, or like a George Floyd or anything that Black Lives Matter, they consider that as what they call critical race theory. In other words, what they're saying is that you are teaching my white children to feel guilty about being white. That's how they're interpreting this. It's somewhat like when Black people said Black Lives Matter, white people interpreted it as saying that white lives don't matter. There's something wrong with their psychology that causes them to always want to be the center of attention. So they are protesting and asking to see the curriculum of like K through 12 in many of these school systems to see whether or not they're teaching critical race theory. Critical race theory is not a part of the curriculum. It is if a current event happens and a teacher decides that they want to mention it in class, These white folks think that this is part of the curriculum. In the state of Texas, the 5th grade textbook has now reduced slavery to that these were workers. They no longer call them slaves. They say that they're workers, and that they also consider them, the people who were brought over here in the holds of ships, as immigrants. We didn't, migrate over here. We were forced over here as property, not human beings with rights, but property. But in the 5th grade textbooks, and let me tell you about the textbooks in the state of Texas. Any textbook that has been adopted in the state of Texas will become the textbooks that the rest of the country will use. They use Texas as the litmus test for all of the textbooks and curriculum all over the country. So we had no say in that. I don't know what Black person was okay with saying that slaves, well, people that were enslaved, let me say like that, were workers, and that we were immigrants. And so you're absolutely right. So we have to do something for ourselves, because this is part of their agenda, part of the conspiracy to keep us blind. That's what the 10% do to the 85%. They were given this mandate by their father, Yakub. So they will never tell us the truth, the whole truth. So help them God. Can't do it. So as Malcolm said, if a man won't, and it probably is most honorable Elijah Muhammad, but Malcolm is attributed with this. If a man won't treat you right, he won't teach you right. So with that being said, this conspiracy, how far does this conspiracy go? What did you all find? How far back could you trace this conspiracy?
I think I found far back to like the 1700s, 1600s, something like that. It went further back than I ever even imagined, but I think it was the 1600s. I found.
What did you find?
It was just, I want to say, I don't know if it was the Carnegies still, but I don't quite remember, but I remember hearing 1600s, and I don't think I have it in my notes, but I remember hearing the 1600s, or just looking at one of those like timelines, because I went down the rabbit hole too with the synagogue of state. Like that took one night, I was doing that for hours. It was just like, oh my goodness. Yeah. But I 1600s, but I'm not sure
yes,
what I actually heard.
Okay, 1600s. It that's a little up from the founding of this nation.
Okay.
So yeah. No, I'm saying that in terms of America, they probably had to go straight at it, with gaining control, because the founding fathers knew that eventually that they would have trouble on their hands from the Blacks, and the majority of white people didn't own slaves. So because the majority didn't own slaves, they allowed, or did not fight against slavery because of the fact that they wanted to one day, of course, be rich and famous and perhaps own a slave or two. So they were complicit, even though that they weren't directly involved with it. So I say that to say that one day when they found out that they also were lumped in, with the Blacks or poor people, the elite look at, and my dad used to tell me this all the time. He said he hates the poor white. the elite hate the poor white more than the black. He said, because it really pulls the cover off of what they are. And so they don't want these, poor or what they consider low-class whites to be out in the public because it's an embarrassment to their whole race. And so they, would just as well as get rid of them as well. So, yeah. Anybody else with the conspiracy? How far did you all go back? Sister Loretta?
It seems like it pretty much goes hand in hand with the history of the compulsory education. Like essentially when it began to be mandated, and you see, the usual suspects all throughout all of that, because is it Ken Rogers? Was that the one? He was talking about just how our current curriculum kind of stemmed from the industrial age and the age of enlightenment. And, you have the major industrialists behind who are funding and funneling all this money into every institution, including education. So I can't remember the exact date, but it sounds like what Sister Kecia said, but essentially when compulsory education began to be mandated, and then who was that other one? Taylor?
John Gatto Taylor.
Oh, no, not him. The industrial engineer. I was thinking about the science of management, and reading that, it was like, you're basically creating robots. When you try to take the mind out of the worker, you want to separate these two, that we're going to have the managers who will do all the thinking and the planning, and you will just specifically operate, basically be a robot. So it's like, and then, you have an educational system, compulsory educational system that is being created during this same time. And it's like, it seemed like that was basically the establishment of it in school. So it's like, you have to do less on the 4-room floor or wherever factory or whatever these people, these workers are going to be in. If we can start that as children, they come to us already prepared with that mindset. Just even thinking about how he had issues with the workers at the time, how they resented that. But if you can instill that in a child and bring them up in that way, that would essentially make it an easier transition, not only for, the workers, the working class, but also that the management, the administrative staff, whatever, who are more of the thinkers. But even with them, they're not really thinking their own thoughts. They're like, you're giving a blueprint of what to think, how to act.
That's it. Now, did you watch the Men Who Built This America? Is that one of the videos you're referring to?
No, I started that series and it's really good. I really want to finish
it is. It really is.
I think what I was watching was the Ken Rogers. Was that his name?
Okay.
Yeah, I was watching.
Ken,
I was watching him, and then just also in just looking up our terms.
Okay.
And I think his name was. All their names are together in my mind right now, and I can't go fast enough if I think here.
I have it in my notes.
The industrial engineer was that created the science of management.
Yes.
So I was just talking about those two, and then the compulsory education.
Okay.
The history of the compulsory.
Okay, let's go ahead and get his name. Robinson. Yes. Ken Robinson. Yes. So the conspiracy goes very, very deep. And I was asking, what did the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say about it in the video, the dumbing down of America? Does anybody have that quote?
I have a few quotes on it, but hold on, let me get a specific one.
Okay.
And the name of the industrial engineer is Frederick Taylor.
Okay.
So that's how I was getting the Kens and the Johns and the Frederick Taylors mixed up. Okay, so for the minister, like I said, he had a few specific ones, but hold on.
Oh, I was supposed to show you all how to get the whatchamacallit. Let me do that right quick while it's on my mind. So if you all need to do this in the future, you don't have to just listen and then type and listen and type. You can listen to it and then you can go timestamp it and find out where it is. Okay, so this is a YouTube video. YouTube has almost this feature here. There's 3 dots right here. Okay. And then it's open transcript. So you open transcript. It's gonna take a while on my slow internet, I'm sure. It says unstable internet. Try it again. If not, then you all just do it on the video on your side. And what it does, it pulls up the transcript. However, it's not punctuated, but you can search it for whatever term that you want by hitting Control F, and then it'll bring up a search bar. And then what you can do is that you can copy and paste whatever information that you want, put your own punctuations in. My internet is not strong enough to pull it up, but you could take the timestamps off. There's a feature to remove the timestamp. So that's what you all know that for the future. So when you have videos that you have to review, what you can do is that you can actually, let me see if I can close 1 or 2 things, that you can actually just use that feature. Okay, Sister Loretta, the quote. What
Okay,
quote
yes,
do
ma'am.
you have?
And that's a game changer. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're quite welcome.
It says, you are paying for an education that is deliberately dumbing down your children. Every human need is a human right. You are not animals. Human rights demand food, clothing, shelter. That's a human right. But beyond that, education is not a privilege. Education is a right of every human being to be educated to the fullest capacity of that society's ability. Any denial of proper education is a denial of human rights. So America can be charged with human rights violations of the people.
Okay. Sister Kecia, do you have a quote from there? Thank you, Sister Loretta.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. In a global economy, the masses of the people of the earth are the victims of a shrewd, manipulative 10% who know the living God, who know the reality of cause and effect. They dumb down the masses of the people to take over world governments and set up a new world order for the few to take power, wealth, and riches. So we will never be a threat.
Yes.
That was the better one.
Oh, praise be to Allah.
Sister Sylvia, do you have a quote from there?
Yes, ma'am. I have, America has been taken from the people. It's no longer we the people, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's government of, by, and for a select few who mismanage this nation, the wealth of the poor. It is a conspiracy that is a global economy, and masses of the people of the earth are its victims of a shrewd, manipulative 10% who know the living God and who know the reality of cause and effect, but they have dumbed the masses of people, black, brown, red, yellow, and white. And this is a conspiracy to take over the world government and set up what President Bush called a new world order, which is the same world order formed over for the few to take power, wealth, and riches and dumb down the masses. So you will never be a threat of their worldwide global hegemony and mastery of people of the earth.
Yes. So the minister in 1997 was trying to lead us to understand this conspiracy to dumb us down. And then right after that, Sister Sylvia, what you just read, he goes on to say, when I was a young boy growing up in Boston, Massachusetts, I was in a school, an all-Black grammar school. But even the dumbest one of us, the dumbest ones in the classroom knew how to read. Listen, just listen. Have you noticed that those of us who are in leadership probably did not have the highest intelligence quotient or IQ in the classroom. So he's letting us know that in the 1940s, people were more educated and more literate than we are now. And then his statistics before that was saying that I think it was like 50% of Black people graduate from high school as functional illiterate. So it was some crazy astronomical number. So he's saying even the dumbest one of them could read. So then what happened? And then you have to put it in context. Minister Farrakhan was born 70 years up from slavery, where it was illegal to learn how to read. And he's saying that they were more literate then than they are now. Interestingly enough, if you all got a chance to scroll all the way down past all of those videos, there was a little a link to something called I think it was the Negro Normal School. That link is talking about how that the normal school was schools where if you wanted to teach, you can go and teach K through 8, or maybe even K through 12. But check this out. All you had to have was a 3rd grade education to enroll. And if you were going to teach in Black schools for 3 years, you got to go for free. And they said, if you did not want to go teach in a Black school, that you had to pay $100 a year to attend. So all you needed was a 3rd grade education. And they were going to teach you everything else you needed to know to be a teacher. Negro normal schools. When you get a chance, take a look at it. So the point is that we're here now. And I used to train teachers. I used to work for a facility called LIGO, which is an acronym for Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. So I worked in the Science Education Center as a science outreach coordinator. And we would have all the science teachers from the district and really from the state. They would come and do summer PDs, professional developments. As Allah is my witness, these are my words. I said, I would not let some of these teachers teach my dog. That's just how dumb they were. And I'm not being nasty, but I'm talking about if you meet some of these teachers in these schools, it's enough to make you question your sanity. That people are actually sending their children to learn under these people. I went to school in education. And sometimes you just be looking around like, are you gonna teach somebody's child? And it doesn't get any better. So the point is that even the teachers are dumbed down. That's a scary reality, knowing that these people are stewards of the life force and they're supposed to rear these young people up so that they can be productive citizens in this world. It's really, really bad. Really bad. And a lot of these, especially with the praxis tests and a lot of these standardized tests that the teachers have to take in order to teach. A lot of us are not able to pass it. So what you wind up with, and when we talked about this on our podcast this week, you wind up with a lot of young white women teaching our children. These white people don't live in our community. These white people don't understand our culture. These white people are just getting their feet wet in terms of education. I can remember my first year of teaching. I know I messed up some children, and may Allah forgive me. I didn't mean to, but I know I didn't know what I was doing. Just being honest with you. And so with that being said, you know, it's, yeah, there's a conspiracy. It's a big time conspiracy. So anyway, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on Study Guide 21. This is number 3. Oh, it's almost time for us to move on. Okay, he talked about who was at the head of the conspiracy. Did anyone get a chance to copy and paste? Hope you didn't have to type it. Okay, this very long quote.
I have it.
Okay, go ahead, Sister Kecia.
Yes, ma'am. Number 3, right? My
Yes,
notes are so
ma'am.
out of order because I call myself being methodical.
You,
Okay,
you
so
gotta copy and paste, sis. Copy and paste.
yes, ma'am. All right. So who is at the head of the conspiracy? The Adamic race is at the head of the conspiracy. They were given, I don't have the exact quote. You want
That's
exactly?
okay. That's
Okay.
okay. No, go ahead.
All right. Yes, ma'am. They were given a period. They were given dominion and rule for a period of time by God. Their educational system has white supremacy at its root.
Yes. Sister Loretta, would you like to add?
This is the quote I wrote, but it wasn't that long, so I'm wondering if I did the right thing. But this is for
I
who's at the
just
head of
do
the
too much.
conspiracy.
Don't worry about me.
Okay, and the answer was Satan himself. And the quote I had was, good education was never designed for the masses, whether they are white, black, or Asian. Good education was given to an elite. And that elite was to rule the masses with a less quality education. And you have a strata of elite, but at the top of that elite is Satan himself.
Yes, it's Satan himself. Okay. So we'll go with that. And I want to go back just a little bit. Or go forward just a little bit from where you were. And then he goes on to say, now, I will quote you one of the great scholars. He was the president of the United States, but he was also the president at Princeton University. President Woodrow Wilson, which he's one of the conspirators, y'all. Okay, it's one of the conspirators. So he says, we want to have a class of persons. Oh, I think one of you all read that. Right? One of you all read that. We want to have a class of persons to have a liberal education. And we want another class of, okay, class of persons. Okay, a class of persons, a very much larger class, he says, of necessity to forego the privilege of a liberal education. Okay, and fit themselves to perform specific difficult manual tasks, which goes back to being a cog in a machine. And when a cog breaks in a machine, you just replace the part. You don't throw away the whole machine. So when a worker is no longer there, you just get another worker and you keep it going. And so he goes on to say, now, this is now universal in every society. You have an educational system set up to make the masses into workers for the class. That is why Paul wrote, we war not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, and the rulers, not the common people, of the darkness of this world and spiritual wickedness in high places. It is those that are in high places that formulate, Sister Sylvia, what we consume in the name of education. We are having all these problems now in education because the idea at the root of it represents a finite idea that has come to the end in order for something new and better to come in. The idea at the root of Western education is that which controls Africa, Asia, Latin America, North America, the entire world. So when Black, Brown, Asian, and Arab students come to get a Western education, they also get baptized in that idea of dominion of superior of the dominion of the superior dominant people. Africa cannot develop because her scholars are educated in Europe and America, and they have that idea in their heads that makes them sick and makes them abusers of their people. So we war not against flesh and blood, but principalities in high places, which brings us to this whole concept of the synagogue of Satan. Now it all sounds all conspiratorial, sounds like the synagogue of Satan. It sounds like something that is name calling or in gist, but literally, and I wrote, I typed or I copied and pasted, let me just say, Revelations 1, 1 through 6 and 9. And I'm not going to read it, but basically it is John the Revelator, who, as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, is Yaqub. Y'all know that, right? Okay. John the Revelator is Yaqub, and he's writing from his prison, he says, on the island of Patmos or Pelon, which we're told is where the white race was manufactured. But what he is saying in this passage is that he is the brethren of Jesus Christ. And in this case, he would be talking about the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. So the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said that Yaqub was not evil. The minister said that Yaqub, I never forget when Minister Ava said it at a laborers meeting. She said that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that Yaqub was the greatest scientist that the Black race ever produced, because he was able to finally deal with that which had been our issue for 66 trillion years. He was able to bring that out of us into its full manifestation so that we can be healed of that sickness. So now I'm laying that as a base because John is the revelator of seeing in the future. So this part of scripture didn't happen back then. He was seeing what was coming. And so he says here, well, I'm just going to skip down to Revelations 2, 8 through 10. And he says, and unto the angels of the church of Smyrna, write these things, saith the first and the last, which was dead and alive. And the minister, he talks about this. He mentions this. I know thy works and tribulations and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say that they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Fear none of these things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee the crown of life. And in Revelations 2, excuse me, 8 through 10, it says, behold, this is 9, behold, I will make them a synagogue of Satan, which say that they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. So there are other places that talk about the synagogue of Satan, like in the book of John, the 8th chapter, I think the 10th verse. He has this conversation, Jesus, with these Jews, and they say, we be not born of fornication. And they talk about that Abraham is our father. And he said, that ye are of your father, the devil. And so he calls them at that time a synagogue of Satan. So what do you all, in your research, what did you all come up with the synagogue of Satan? So what are some of the things that you all came up with, and why is that relevant to education?
What I came up with, I'm not sure if it's completely accurate because I didn't get to finish going down my rabbit hole, but yeah, I would say that the synagogue of Satan is the Zionists, the Jewish, the Ashkenazi Jews, or the Zionists, and at the seat would be the Rothschild, or the House of Rothschild. But I have a question, and I'm glad that you brought up this specific scripture of, I think it's John 8, you belong to your father, the devil. So the minister has said that Yakub is the greatest scientist we've ever had, and he's not evil. So when they talk about your father, the devil, that's not Yakub, even though Yakub is the father, or he created the white race. We know that the white man is the devil. We would argue that the synagogue of Satan, that is Satan himself, these Zionist Jews, so-called Jews, who essentially run the entire world. But I don't know. I'm confused.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I don't know. I can't tell you.
Okay.
Can't square it. But yeah, I see what you're saying, because their father is Yakub. And so the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said he wasn't evil. So I don't know.
Right. Because in my study, or what I was studying about this is that the Zionists essentially worship Lucifer, who is Satan, and if we think of, the Talmud and the trigonology that they were taught, and even I know Dr. Wesley, when he did his talk on Yakub, and he blew my mind completely, because he was talking about some of the Psalms that were not written by David are actually referring to Yakub. And so why it was important, one of the reasons it's important to take the name of God out the scripture, because you got two different gods that are being referred to and worshiped to. And when you think about it on that sense, they really are following their God and doing what they were created to do or whatever. But so I don't know. I was always confused. Well, I don't know.
I'll see if I can ask somebody smarter than me. How about that? How about that? So, synagogue of Satan. I'll read a little bit what I have here. It says, and actually, I think in the course room, I put this document, but it says, this is called the House of Rothschild. And I'm not saying that this is, annotated and referenced, but it is from a book. And so you all can take a look at it, and maybe it can point you in certain directions. But it says, this is part 1, the House of Rothschild. If one looked on the backstage of history, he would find the House of Rothschild. They have indebted kings, manipulated kingdoms, created wars, and molded the very shape of the international world. Among the hierarchy of the Illuminati, they are revered as a powerful satanic bloodline. They are living legends, said one biographer. In America, a boy wants to become president. In Europe, he would rather be a Rothschild. To be a Rothschild is to be a modern Croesus, which is a king in Lydia and of Lydia, a 20th century Midas. They are a dynasty of enduring power, a magic bloodline in Satan's empire. We will probably never know exactly when occultism was introduced to the Rothschilds. Several of their ancestors have been rabbis, so the occultism probably came in the form of the Jewish Kabbalah, Jewish Kabbalism, Sabbatism, or Frankism. The House of Rothschild practices Gnosis Satanism. The Rothschilds would probably not call themselves Satanists, but by our standards, they are, considering they sacrifice and spiritual worship involved. The truth is something hard to tell. The stories and families weave are hard to distinguish from the truth. The stories the families weave are hard to distinguish from the truth. Myths are one of the best weapons, and research must be wary. So this person starting off saying that these people are actually they're satanic bloodline. And from my research, very interesting how they just not getting into the minutia of the okay. Sister Gabrielle, go ahead. This is her topic here.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Like you said, this is something I'm very interested in. But to Sister Loretta's question about Jesus saying that when he was talking to the Jews, saying that they were the synagogue of Satan, and that their father is the devil. Well, I wouldn't get too deep off into tracing a bloodline from that point, because at this point the Jews were still Semitic. The Ashkenazi, because I know when you get with the Khazar, that didn't happen till well after Jesus's time. So at this point, really, when Jesus calls into question their lineage, it was in response to the Jews questioning his lineage. And so, of course, again, the fact that they're calling, Jesus's mother, a whore, they were calling her a whore as well, said that she laid down with the carpenters. But the issue at that time is that Jews were very insular, and they were very big on bloodlines and tracing your lineage to one of the Jewish tribes, or the Israeli tribes, or the tribes of Israel. And so, being that Jesus's mother was not Jewish, his mother was an Egyptian. His mother was not of Jewish descent. So they're really calling into question his authenticity as a Jew. Jesus traces his bloodline to the Jews through his father's side. And so the thing is that Jesus, what he's really attacking is that the Jews are trying to stand on this kind of moral high ground, that because we are genetically tied back to Abraham, we are better than you. And so Jesus, in response, was kind of reminding them that the covenant with Abraham and his seed was not necessarily through the blood, but it was actually through the practice of what Abraham believed in. And at that point, you had the Jews being broken up into a diaspora, where they had to make what now we call the Talmud, because before, the Jews kept their traditions orally. And so it was a very long kept oral tradition after the so-called Exodus. It was oral tradition that they kept. But when the Jews became dispersed, and then also when they were dispersed, wherever they would go, they were being persecuted for their religious beliefs. And so the Jews came under a lot of attack. So what they started to do is that they had their scribes to finally start writing down their practices. And that's what you get with the Talmud. And so the thing is that because they were dispersed, you had two forms of the Talmud that really came about. And that's the Babylonian Talmud, as we know about, and that is the Jerusalem Talmud. But the thing is that with the Babylonian Talmud, just like any minority group, when you're amongst a majority in that town, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So in order to survive persecution, the Jews started to take on some of the practices of the Babylonians, which end up influencing that version of the Talmud. And one thing you know about the Babylonians is that they were notoriously, how can I say, notoriously decadent, let's put it like that. And so a lot of that influence started to taint their version of the Talmud. Now, to even go even further back, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that when Moses taught the Jews, he gave them two basically paths. One was a path of righteousness and the other one was a path of evil. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a lot of times he told us histories in abstract or very simplified, stripped down versions of history. But what this is referring to is that when Moses came down with this is something that's specific that the Jews, practicing Jews, know that they don't teach us. Because in our mind, we think, okay, Muslims, Muhammad, Quran, Christians, Bible, Jesus, and then the rest of the world thinks Moses, Torah, Jews. But the Jews don't believe that. The Jews really don't. They barely even reference Moses, and they claim all the way back to Abraham. They basically skip over Moses and go back to Abraham. And now this is where my theory comes in. It's because Moses was a lawbringer, and these children of Israel who were originally Canaanites, these people were notoriously, wild, rebellious people. And so Moses, when he was trying to, bring them on the Exodus, he had a hard time. So he had to end up bringing the law. And this is why they really don't like to really talk about him. But the thing is that this is what they believe, that when Moses came down off of Mount Sinai with the 10 Commandments, that was the written Torah. But they also say that he also gave in an oral form, like lectures to the 70 elders, which they call the Sanhedrins, and that they took the oral lessons that Moses gave to the Sanhedrin, and that is where the Talmud comes from, which is really a commentary on the written law. And
Do
so
you think that's the tricknology? Some of the forgotten tricknology?
I can't tell you that that's what it is, but that's my theory from my studies, is that is the forgotten tricknology, because we were taught that Moses, in the Supreme Wisdom, we're taught that Moses taught them how to live a respectful life, how to clean themselves up, right? How to build a home for themselves. And if you actually look at the Talmud, most of the Talmud has to do with laws on how to live their life. But the Talmud is broken up into many different parts. And so most of it is just laws. And that's why most practicing Jews, they're going to tell you, oh, the Talmud is not bad. That's just where we get all the laws. They said that's where the Talmud comes, where you can't eat a cheeseburger because you're not supposed to mix meat and cheese or meat and dairy and all that kind of stuff, and all the little peculiarities of their practice. But the thing is that you have the Talmud, I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but you have the Mishnah and you have the Tanakh. And then a part of the Mishnah is the Kabbalah. So you have the Talmud itself is a commentary. And then within the Talmud, you have commentary on commentary. And now you can kind of see what this can kind of lead down a dangerous path when you are interpreting interpretations And that's just like when you keep making a copy off of a copy, over time, it starts to degrade the quality. And so that's the thing, is that because, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because remember, the Jews were dispersed to different lands. And so they are trying to adapt their laws and customs to the lands that they're living in. And over time, they started to mix it in with actual doctrine. And then they started to rationalize the deviation that they were doing, and pretty much taking that and their interpretations and commentaries and adding on things as precedent over the written law. And so
Just
it's not
taking the words out of these places. That's
Exactly.
what,
exactly. And again, I don't necessarily think that it probably happened for subversive reasons. It probably was very practical. But again, when you don't, have checks and balances on yourself, it kind of leads down this, where are we now? And so by the time Jesus comes up, Jesus is more so teaching on the heart and the soul of what is written. And the Jews at that time, they were more so using loopholes and twisting the word through their interpretation to basically, have things in their favor. And specifically what he saw is that they were using the scripture and the law to justify basically making money out of the temple. And so they had become more materialistic in their practice and strayed away from the spiritual aspect, which was really, part of it was responsible for them actually becoming civilized. So that's the beautiful thing about the Holy Quran, is that well in the beginning of the Quran, it tells you there's a section called rules of interpretation. And then it talks about how there are some verses that are decisive and there are some that are allegory. And then those who have a perversity in their heart and seek to mislead people, will try to take the allegory as decisive. That's exactly what the Talmud is and how it's been used by them. And then, like I said, basically, Jesus was aware of what they were doing and were calling them out. And now this has serious political implications, because at that point, the Romans were in charge of Jerusalem. And you have to understand that Romans were empires and conquerors. And a common thing for empires and conquerors to do is, as they conquer a land, they subsume the culture of those people and kind of let them rule themselves and kind of keep some of their culture in exchange for, authority. And so that's kind of how you keep the balance. And that would make sense. If you're conquering everybody, you don't just want all these uprisings all the time. So you almost kind of let them do their own thing. And that's what was going on in Jerusalem, is that the Romans realized that the Jewish, the Jewish priests and the Jewish clergy had a lot of influence in the community when it comes to, controlling people and getting people the same way, the United States government does with Negro preachers. They, anytime Black people start to wake up, they call on them to, kind of put out the fire. It's the same relationship that the Romans and the Jews had at the same time. And that was, again, Jesus was calling out the Jews. So the Jews, called on their political buddies and basically said, get rid of him because he's making us look bad.
We're going to put a pin in it. If you all want to know more about this, you could go to our channel at Muhammad Ma 65. She did a whole series on the Jews. Thank you, Sister Gabrielle, but time is upon us. And we hadn't even gone over this week's assignment. We appreciate it. Thank you. Really, I really do. I learned something tonight. Even something else than what I've already learned from you. Okay. But just stay on standby, because we may need you again. I want to just go a little bit into this father of the or the head of the house of Rothschilds, and going a little bit into his biography. Did you all research anything about Amschel, let me see, because I mix his name all the way up every time. Mayor Amschel Bauer. Okay, what do you know about him, Sister Loretta?
I know that he changed his name to Rothschild based on the, what is it called? The pentagram, that star, which was red. And I'm trying to remember if he's the one who put it on his door, if he saw it on the door. But
it was on his door.
Okay, he put it on the door. And that what that means, the rot was red in German and child was shield, I believe it was. And so
Red shield.
yes. So he changed his name. I'm trying to remember what else about him. That's the thing that's sticking out the most.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Oh, and just bringing back the Kabbalah, that symbol, I want to say, had some type of origins in the Jewish Kabbalah.
Yeah. And that
he was also an Ashkenazi Jew.
awesome. Anyone else?
I didn't get past the bushes.
About
the bushes, like the synagogue of Satan, everything came up. George Bush. Everything that I found was the bushes, so I didn't get past that.
And that's real. There's a book called The House of Saud, as in the Saudi Arabia, and the House of Bush, the House of Bush, the House of Saud. Deep. That family goes back deep. And those people over there in Arabia are devils. Okay. I'll say that. Yes, ma'am. So I'm just gonna go and just read a little bit, or maybe not, maybe more than a little bit. But anyway, just to bring everybody up. Well, the family began in Frankfurt, Germany, the city where paper money was popularized. Okay. So paper money is fiat money. Somebody give you paper and say, I'm gonna hold you gold in the bank for this paper. Boy, that's the biggest Ponzi scheme ever hatched. Smart people. Okay. The oldest known Rothschild went by the name of Yuri Feshbik, and I'm sure I mispronounced this, so don't worry about it, who lived in the early 16th century. This is where you all are getting that from. His descendants lived in the House of the Red Shield. His great grandson was Moses Bauer, who lived in the early 18th century. The family was mostly made up of Jewish retail traders and lived in Judengasse, or the Jewish Alley in Frankfurt. That's what they call the ghettos. Jewish Alley was the product of the anti-Semitic bent in Europe and did not have very good living conditions. That is where the word ghetto comes from. Most Ashkenazi Jews of the time did not use surnames. Instead, they preferred the Chinese custom of using symbols as the family identity. These symbols were sometimes used on signs outside the Jewish houses as an address. Some Jews had taken on surnames to fit in, but the use of the symbol was more popular. The early Rothschilds used the name Bauer, meaning farmer in German. Why would a family of retail traders call themselves Bauer? Perhaps to remain unnoticed. The Bauer line continues today, but in the 1700s, one man renamed his branch of the family after its symbol and address, the Red Shield, or the Shield of Solomon. Mayor Amschel Bauer was a well-off coin trader in Frankfurt. Let me see if this is what you were going into, Sister Loretta. In the front of his house hung a sign with the family symbol, which was a red hexagram. The hexagram, also known as the Seal of Solomon, the Magdalene David, or the Star of David, was very occultic. It is used today as a symbol of Israel, but it is not Jewish. In his excellent book, The Six-Pointed Star, O.J. Graham explains that the hexagram was used in the ancient mystery religions. It was the symbol of Moloch, Ashtoreth, and others. In fact, the hexagram was used to represent Saturn, and that has to do with hell. Saturn is the planet that represents hell, which earlier newsletters have discussed. The six-pointed star is considered to be equivalent with the Oriental yin and yang symbol, which is the Luciferian concept of balancing good and evil. The symbol appeared to have some use by King Solomon when he apostatized or got rid, and thereafter was called the Seal of Solomon. Later on, the Jewish Kabbalism or occultism, different name for the same game, he says, picked it up as a magic symbol. Though promotion of the Kabbalists and the Zionists, it had become a symbol of Jewish identity, although the occult circles knew better. The Bowers used the hexagram as a symbol, as a family sign. It points to their involvement in Jewish Kabbalism. In fact, the six-pointed star is so significant to them that Mayor Amschel Brower decided to adopt it as his new name. Mayor Amschel Rothschild. As she said, Roth means red and shield. Shield means shield. I believe this was done to identify the family with occultism and the likes of Saturn or Ashtoreth, whom the Astors, the Astor family, that's another one of these people, were named to identify his family with occultism. Wait, I skipped. Named after. So this is where I want to go with this. Meir was sent to be a rabbi when he was 10 years old. So this is how he gets connected with this occultism. When he was 10 in 1753, and a year and a half later, his parents died. He was brilliant and was encouraged by relatives to continue his studies, but coin trading, they say, was his love. He left school, and when 13 was sent to Hanover to be an apprentice at an Illuminati Oppenheimer bank. When I heard the name Oppenheimer, what part of California are you from, sister? Loretta?
Los Angeles.
Okay. In the Bay Area, there's something called the Exploratorium that was built by Frank Oppenheimer. His brother, and I'll just stop here. His brother was Robert Oppenheimer, which blew my mind. You all know who Robert Oppenheimer is? It's the man that created the atomic bomb. And I'm like, whoa, these people go so deep, all in science. The Hertz, as in, like, the Hertz is that's the name for cycles per second. When you have 200 Hertz, that's part of this family. All of science, education, banking, every industry, movies. MGM Grand is the Rothschilds. Every aspect of life, these people got on lock. So when they talk about in the Matrix being born into a system of control, a prison, these people have every aspect of life totally on lock. So we had to question everything that we thought that we knew, which brings us back to education. That's why it's so important for us, especially with what we've been given. And I'm going to stop there and allow you all to go ahead and finish, because I have to get to the presentation tonight, and it's not that long. But we had to question everything. We have to be willing to literally to suspend our own minds. You all read or listened to Our Savior Has Arrived, chapter 23. And literally, that's what he was saying in there. It's like, one of those etch a sketches, and you write something on it, then you have to shake it up, and then you have to do that to erase it. That's literally how we have to do our minds. My question is always, how do you do that? That means that we have to be totally immersed in what we've been given. And our children have to be totally immersed in what we've been given. So we had to expose the lie first so that we can know why we need to do what we have to do. Sister Kecia.
I'm just going to say that, I really appreciate this and I really appreciate the class, because going through all this, like if I go back to the way that I was thinking, then shame on me. I just was thinking that through this whole thing. And I was thinking, you said earlier, it sounds like a conspiracy. So you listen to all this and it kind of does sound like, wait a minute, this is conspiracy theory. But the more you research and you really see how deep this goes and the reason for their involvement, just the whole reason behind their involvement. So I'm just thinking to myself, if I go back to the way that I used to think about education, the way I used to teach, then something is not right. So I appreciate this class and I appreciate all the things. Like, I never would have thought that I would even want to listen to somebody like John Taylor Gatto, all these people, but it's so fascinating. You know what I'm saying? Like, I couldn't look away. I was just kept, just like, and so I just appreciate all of your research. And I wanted to ask you, did you find that video on your own or did somebody give that to you? I don't know why that question came up in my mind, but I just wanted to know. So.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. We thank you for your, I guess, your vote of confidence, but I found it on my own, the video. I'm always searching, just searching, looking. I've spent countless hours. I can't even tell you how many hours that I spent at the computer, and started back in 1998 when I went back to college. The internet was new, right? Sister Kecia, you're not old enough, I don't think, Sister Loretta, to really understand the newness of the internet.
We're around the same age based on what you said on your podcast.
Oh, okay. No, I know Sister Kecia. Oh, I meant Sister Loretta. Sister Loretta is not, maybe don't understand a world before the internet.
I do.
Like, you do? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I was at the university, and every chance I could sneak and get on the computer and start searching stuff, I started searching stuff way back then. I found a whole bunch of stuff. And so I just always asked questions. I would ask questions like, what is 66 trillion years old? And you would get something back. And back in 1998, I got answers. So I would just ask questions that I would ask God. And so that's how I come up on all this stuff. If I see it in the any book, I'll give you one way out thing. This is just how I research. I was in an intense study of how to eat to live. And I came across this part where the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad talked about bread. And he said, don't eat fresh bread. He said, bake it through and through. And I was like, okay. It's kind of hard to eat on a sandwich when your bread is like Melba toast when you're trying to eat a sandwich, right? So I said, but why? I know there's a reason. And I just did a quick Google search. What happens to bread with what benefits are there to baking your bread thoroughly? You know what I came across? There was a research paper where they said that every time that you bake your bread, okay, because bread has a lot of carbs in it, right? It reduces the glycemic index by half, no matter how many times you bake it. So if it's 20, well, say if it's the glycemic index of a slice of bread is 20. Once you bake it, it'll be 10. Once you bake it again, it'll be 5. So he was trying to give us a way to reduce the carbohydrate the carbohydrates in bread so that we could eat it and it would be good for us. And he just said, it won't rise again in your stomach. But there was actually some science and chemistry behind that. I was like, so that's how I do my research. Okay, so let's move on to the presentation for tonight. It's not that long. We got 30 minutes. So let me go ahead and start sharing. It's not long, but as brother used to say, it is strong. Not long, but it's strong. Okay, so so tonight we're gonna deal with, as soon as it comes up, the purpose for Master Fard Muhammad's coming. How teachers and educators factor into Allah's divine scheme and being clear on Allah's directives. Okay. We reviewed the assignment. I put that slide up there. Tonight, we're going to have a short presentation and a class discussion. We probably won't get to the discussion. Question. Who is Master Fard Muhammad? What does Allah mean? What does it mean to come in the person of? And why is it important to believe that Allah is as a man, a human being? Those are questions for you all. But we can keep them a little short. Excuse me. Who is Master Fard Muhammad? Who is Master Fard Muhammad?
Allah in person.
Allah in person. Okay. Anybody else? He has other epithets, as they call it. Who is Master Fard Muhammad?
He is the son of one of the major scientists.
Okay, okay. Sister Sylvia, you got anything to add? Who is Master Fard Muhammad? No? Okay, well, what does Allah mean then? Sister Sylvia, what does Allah mean?
What does Allah mean? The name of God.
Okay. The name of God. Anybody have anything different? These are not trick questions. So what does it mean to come in the person of?
I think of it like electricity and Allah being that the source of all power, life, and it's generated through, I guess it's a conduit.
Mhm.
But so Master Fard Muhammad is not the original source. He's not the creator, but he is the channel in which that power is actualized or realized in this dispensation of time.
Excellent answer. Excellent answer. So why is it important to believe that Allah is a man, a human being? Why is that important?
I think it keeps you grounded. I think if you don't believe that Allah is a man, then you'll be out in Spookville. Like
Okay.
you know what I'm saying? To me, it keeps you grounded. Allah is a man. I'm in his image. I'm in his likeness. And so then you can see yourself as being a God. But if God is other than man, then someone gave a quote in study group. You heard the quote from study group Friday night. We were in the same group. I don't know, I don't know if you heard it, but it was, I'm sorry, I have it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that if you worship other than man for God, you're worshiping less than yourself. So
Yeah, that's deep. Deep, deep, deep. So let's go ahead to these very simplistic answers, I think. Oh, Okay, who was Master Fard Muhammad Allah, God in person, the Messiah, the Mahdi, the 24th scientist. These are just some names. What does Allah mean? An Arabic name for God, the supreme being, God, one who possesses force and power. And also the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said it means all in all. So what does it mean to come in the person of Allah? In the person of, it, by definition, it says in the physical form. A formal use is used to say that someone is the person who does something or provides something, etc., such as relief during the blackout arrived in the person of my brother, who brought flashlights and candles. In the person of. What does it mean to come in the person of? And I think that the brother and study group talked about this. Sister Kecia, theophany. It was in my slides before he said it. Theophany is from the Greek theophania, appearance of God. It's the manifestation in a sense of deity in a sensible, as in your five senses, form, theophany. The mark of biblical theophanies is the temporariness. Master Fard Muhammad was here for 3 years and 4 months, and the suddenness of appearance of God, which is here, not an enduring presence in a certain place or time. The incarnation of Christ, however, may be seen as the ultimate and the fullest form of divine manifestation in a whole spectrum of theophanies. So, point number 12. Here we go. We believe that Allah God appeared in the person of Master W. Fard Muhammad, July 30th, the long-awaited Messiah of the Christians and the Mahdi of the Muslims. We believe further and lastly that Allah is God, and besides him there is no God, and he will bring about a universal government of peace wherein we can all live in peace together. We believe that Allah, God appeared in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, July 1930, the long-awaited Messiah of the Christians and the Mahdi of the Muslims. We believe, why do I have this twice? I don't know. Let's see. I know I was going somewhere. Okay, what does it mean to be in the person of? The person of a human being that has the capacity to understand all knowledge contained within the universe. Just think about that. Think about it in your brain right now. Everything that was going on in the universe, from ants, crawling on the ground to, star clusters being formed. You knew about all of it. Just think about your mind being able to hold all this information. Okay, so contained within the universe and has actualized that ability, it means to be the best knower of those who know. I mean, just think about that. What kind of brain can hold all this information? He can recite 150,000 years of history day by day. What kind of brain? Let me ask you this. Let me see. I have to get my whatchamacallit. I forget what I'm trying to say. But when you're teaching, you have this is a birthday gift from my dear husband. It is a 2 terabyte hard drive. So how much data And I asked this in my last class, but it just so happened to be that it was a very, very smart man who was in, what was he? Wasn't it computer science, but he did something or another. But anyway, how much data would you consider for 150,000 years, day by day? How many terabytes of data would that be? And actually, we did come up with it somewhere because he went to the Library of Congress, you know, where they have all that stuff digitalized. And so we figured out that it was, of course, more than 2 terabytes of data, but just think about it. And then it's not incorrect. You know how we fumble through, you know, remembering things in the supreme wisdom. And so when we're trying to recite it as a class, everybody's all over the place. The point is that he's not fumbling over this. He's reciting it line by line, word by word. So the only thing I can come to the conclusion of is that his brain and how it operates has to be on the order of like a computer hard drive. That's just my thoughts. Okay, in this case, Lost Foundation of Islam in the West, this person came down, according to Mother Tynetta, he came down to give us this knowledge and wisdom of the mysteries of the universe. Now we say he traveled 9,000 miles, right, from the east. Mother Tynetta says the messenger said he came down. Now I don't know if that's in dimensionality. I don't know what that is, but we're not going to get too deep here. So potentiality. Mustafa Muhammad Allah person represents our potential of being gods and being perfect beings, even as our Father in heaven is perfect. So what is potentiality? Potentiality, uh-oh, what happened? I let Sister Valinda in the class and something happened to my screen. Okay, let me see. I'm sorry, say it again.
No, I was just giving you the greetings again. I'm back on.
Okay, praise be to Allah. We are so glad to have you. Do you all see what is potentiality? Yes?
Yes, ma'am, but
The
just
title
that.
is there, but nothing is on it on the slide except for the title.
Okay, that's all that. Okay, I just lost it. Potentiality is the ability for development, achievement, or success that is natural or has not been used. Potential. So potentiality. Potentiality is not actuality. So when we call each other, well, when the brothers call each other, Assalamu alaikum, God, you know, that's in potential. So sometimes we get it twisted and we start trying to act like, you know, what we're actually not, and we get in trouble. So potentiality and actuality. The concept of potentiality in this context generally refers to the possibility that a thing can be said to have. Aristotle did not consider all possibilities the same and emphasized the importance of those that become real of their own accord when conditions are right and nothing stops them. Actuality, in contrast to potentiality, is the motion, change, or activity that represents an exercise or a fulfillment of that possibility when a possibility becomes real in the fullest sense. So when Master Fard Muhammad said he came to make us into himself, he came to make us into gods. That's what his mission is, to make us into him, so that we have the same force and power that he has. He made one, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who made one, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, but they're making us. We have to submit to the process. It doesn't mean that we're going to be cookie cutter. It just means that in our sphere of or our zone of genius, that we will actualize that God potential. So actuality, these three holy men represent the actuality of the potentiality of becoming God in person. You know, each one of these persons are God. So we could say God in the person of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, God in the person of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because the whole thing of God in person, and I don't think I have this on the slide, but if you're in a court of law and they say that you must appear in proper person, that means that you cannot have a representative go to court for you. It means that your attorney cannot represent you without your person being there. So when we talk about God in person, that means that God actually has to be physically among us to be said to be God in person and to be at that time. Now, I want us to think about this. We say that Allah, Master Fard Muhammad is Allah. And we study his body of knowledge. But I want us to think about this, that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad literally, for real, as they say, learned from God. He was taught by God. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said he didn't have that type of relationship with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad like many people did. He was kind of kept at, to a degree, at a distance. So although he was taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, remember, after teaching Malcolm, he said, I'll never teach another one like him. So he tried him so severely, but he taught him more at arm's length. Now, the test is for us. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said at the Family Summit, he talked about being taught by distance learning, if you will. So we have to learn or become God almost from remote learning, because we don't have that one-on-one with him. So that puts the onus on us to really study and get into the mind of God. So they have laid the path towards perfection. So this is the message that I want us to listen to right quick. It's just a few minutes. It should take us on to the end. It's not available. Oh my. Now this is my video. Why is it not available? So you gotta watch these people, you gotta watch. But it will be in the course room. It's not available. Excuse me. I don't know what happened to it. I'll have to see, but it will be in the course room. So anyway, it says, please answer the questions on the next slide as you listen to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan give us clarity on Master Fard Muhammad's coming and our purpose as teachers. Now, in that clip, the minister is asking, is a teacher professional development that he was given to the teachers at Muhammad University in Chicago. And he asked them, he said, do you know, he said, he wanted us to be clear on our purpose as teachers for Master Fard Muhammad's coming. And he asked, you know, what was his purpose for coming? Because that helped define us as teachers and what we're supposed to do with our students. In short, he says that Master Fard Muhammad came to make us into gods, make us into himself. And that's what we're supposed to be doing with the children. And so you'll hear this in the course room because it is available for you all to listen to. So because it wasn't, for some reason, it wasn't on the video, I should have gone through it all the way. You really don't have to answer the questions. And he even talks about how Master Fard Muhammad will make things new, which we had that in chapter 23 of Our Savior Has Arrived. And what will be the, excuse me, what will be the role of teachers? What will the role of teachers be in the future during this time of destruction? Well, the future is now. Have you all listened to that video that is on the channel? It's by Mother Tynetta that talks about a 20-year re-education period. It's in Our Savior Has Arrived. It should have been in that chapter where he talks about we'll go through a 20-year re-education period. Yeah. And so in order to go through this 20-year re-education period, we'll need educators that'll help. So, being that I didn't have the audio, I think this is the last video. Okay, so yeah, we have to be clear on why we're in the classroom. We're not in the classroom to keep students busy while their parents are at work. That is not what we're there for. We're there to help cultivate the God force and the potential that's in the student. You know, and so we have to be clear on why we're even in front of the students. It's not just about teaching, you know, them how to read, teaching them, that's part of the process. But we're teaching them how to read so that they can acquire the mind of God through research and study. And so we have to move beyond this, the education system that made us into workaday slaves or made us into mental slaves. So we have to be creative. We have to be like the God in the beginning of the universe. And we have to pull from out of ourselves something that doesn't exist. These lesson plans, these unit plans, more creative ways of teaching our children in the classroom. That's your job. And it can't be, you know, if I just give you something to read, and let me see how I can say this. There's a difference between teaching and training. Training is when you teach a skill, and that skill, once it's learned or mastered, you know the skill. Education is different. Education is actually helping to, like I said, cultivate. And when you cultivate soil, you take it and you chop it up and you put nutrients in it and you make it real fertile so that something can grow up out of it that's new, which is different from training. So in our MGT classes, we're being trained, okay? Doesn't have the word education in the title. It's training. So we have to learn how to make bean soup. You have to learn how to sew. You don't necessarily need to learn how to make bean soup every year for 12 years. Once you got it, you got it. You move on to the next skill. Same thing with sewing. Once you got it, you got it. You move on to the next skill. But with education, you're making the student, you're taking that potentiality and you're nurturing it so that something new altogether can grow up out of it. And that's what we have to do as educators. And that's a tall order. I mean, how many people have made gods before? It's like being the president for the first time. Like they said, no, you're not, you only be the president for the first time. So the point is that making gods. This week, you all, let me bring you to the course room right quick as we close out, because we did start just a little bit late. Course room. Let me find it. I think it's here. You all will have an assignment, not just an assignment. Here it is, course room. You all have a quiz that is opening up tonight. Guess I should have told you all in advance, but it's just a quiz. And so this quiz is opening tonight, and here it is right here, and is due by Friday. I forget what time it's due. And this week, we are going to listen to these teacher professional development workshops. And just a note that the last one is missing. I have not been able to find that last one, so I do apologize, but I can't find it. You have some reading to do. Point number 12, what the Muslims believe, a scientific analysis concerning Allah, the supreme being, W.D. Fard Muhammad is Allah. So this is a letter that is given, that is by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad from 1947. Excuse me. You have an article review, and all of these have to do with the same topic. You know, Master Fard Muhammad's coming. In an article review by Mother Tainetta Muhammad, it calls The Cultural Revolution Begins in Search of the Messiah. Muhammad cracks an atom into 10 million parts. And we have just one video this week, excuse me, that is required, and it's Understanding Master Fard Muhammad. And so the video is proof that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is who he says he is. And then we have two supplemental videos. And the first one is Man is Born with the Capacity to Know Everything. And then Master Fard Muhammad begets not, but produces a nation from the supreme wisdom of his mouth. So those are very short videos, excerpts that I found from something else. And with your article review, this is the instructions for it. If you have any questions, they have questions, and this is it for this week. I'm sure you all will be very happy that that's all that you have this week. All right. Any questions, comments, or concerns? You have until Wednesday at midnight to submit this assignment. If you've already submitted it, because I didn't get a chance to look at it, you should have be able to correct it or add something to it or whatever. And if you don't have that capacity, let me know and I'll make it happen. Any questions? Comments? Okay, ladies, this is week 4. We have really only 3 more weeks to go. Because on the 4th week, you all are going to, well, the 8th week, on the 4th week from here, you all are going to be presenting and I'm going to be viewing. So we have 3 more weeks to go, and you will see that things we're starting to kind of, wind down with me talking, and it's going to be more with you all. So we will have one short class, I think that's in 2 weeks. And you all will also have a breakout session to work on your presentations during class. I'm not sure if it's next week. I think it's the week after that. Okay, well, let's go ahead, and we were able to close out on time. Praise Allah. So let's go ahead and close out in prayer. Position prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of this day of requital. Thee do we serve, and thee do we beseech for help. Guide us on the right path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed thy favors, and not the path of those upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray. Say he, Allah is one. Allah is he of whom nothing is independent, but upon whom all do depend. He begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is none like him. I submit this prayer in the name of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and in the name of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Amen. May Allah bless you all to have a wonderful rest of your night. Until we meet again. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, Sister Kecia.
Walaikum salam. I'm sorry, I have a random question. In the problem book, it says that atoms, I'm sorry, it's a really quick question. A total atoms equal, there's a 1 and 79 zeros. Do you know how to pronounce that number?
No, but did you look it up?
Okay. I didn't. I was just trying to do
You
my
need
little.
to get that chart for those children. You
Yes,
need to
ma'am.
get that chart. It's cool. I know I have the chart, but I can't pronounce it. I don't even know what it is at this point. But there's
Yes,
a
ma'am.
chart and it has
That
all
goes
the
that far? Okay.
prefixes. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. So you're still dealing with atoms with your students?
We're moving into matter tomorrow. So yes, ma'am. Got what
Cool.
atoms and matter together. Yes, ma'am.
So how's it been going?
It's phenomenal. Praise be to Allah. They love it. They absolutely love it. And what's coming out of them is it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Praise be
I'm
to Allah.
telling you. Praise be to Allah. Yes. Anybody else before we close out? Oh, we've already closed out.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
For our group assignment, are we going to have any questions that go along with that? Sister Sylvia mentioned they did for last.
They do. They do.
Okay.
But I blinded them because I want to review them before I'll open it. So I'll open it probably tomorrow.
Okay. Yes.
I want to go through the questions. Yes, you're right, Sister Sylvia. There were questions last time. But I want to refine them, Yes, ma'am. All right, ladies. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. You do the same.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Assalamualaikum.
Like,
Walaikum